Hello. Welcome to This New World podcast, an open platform for immigrants and current citizens to speak on what keeps them determined and ambitious. Today we have a guest from Cameroon. He currently lives in the United States, and he's going to tell you a story. Listen up.
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. And yourself?
I'm good. You sound like you just woke up, man.
Yeah, I did.
Interesting. Okay, so welcome to the podcast. Let's get straight into it. Where are you from?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. And yeah, I'm originally from Cameroon, but I'm currently in the DC area.
How long have you been in the United States?
I've been in the United States since about 2004.
What made you come to the U.S.? I'm sure it was a situation where you had no choice. You were a kid at that time, correct?
Yeah, my parents decided to move to the United States, so I didn't really have any choice in the matter.
Why was that? What was the purpose?
For a better life, better opportunities, you know. I mean, to be honest, there's not a lot of opportunities where I'm from.
How's life back in Cameroon?
Uh, Life in Cameroon, at the point when we lived there was pretty good, you know. We were pretty well off. We had enough food to eat. We spent time with my parents. We basically had a really good life. But considering opportunities, there's more potential in the United States than there is in Cameroon.
So where is Cameroon?
Cameroon is in West Africa.
Okay. Were you living in the capital of Cameroon, or where was it?
No, I was living in the English side, in Bamenda.
The English side. What do you mean?
Well, Cameroon is divided into two sides. So there's an English side and there's a French side. And I think it all comes from colonialism and how the country was divided when we requested independence.
So do you speak French?
No, I left too early to learn French.
When you were in Cameroon going through school, was it a situation where you had to learn French and English?
When I was in school, we had to learn French and English, especially in the school that I went to. But I was just too young to have absorbed French as a new language because where I live, we spoke English all the time, and the only opportunity to learn French was in school.
What other types of languages are in Cameroon apart from French and English?
We have the native languages. Cameroon is divided into each little section has its own villages. Cameroon probably has thousands of villages, and each of those villages have their own languages. And then we also speak broken English.
Broken English. Does that have another name?
Yep, pidgin.
Broken English also means pigeon. Okay. So let's fast forward to you coming to the United States. Do you mind elaborating on how that was?
Coming to the United States was a pretty shocking experience, I'll have to admit. As a child, I really didn't like it. I liked my life in Cameroon better than what was in the United States, you know? Well, you kind of go from being, I guess because we were more well off in Cameroon and life was a little bit better. So you kind of go from being well off and, having a lot of things that you want, having time spent with your parents, having lots of friends, to come into a new country where it's like a culture shock. Your parents are working all the time. There's not a lot of resources as they used to be. getting used to school, making new friends, getting used to a new culture is very hard. So as a child, it was terrible for me. I much preferred my life in Cameroon.
I understand that. So did you feel like you had to start over?
I definitely had to start all over, and kind of wish I was better prepared for it. But my parents being immigrants themselves, they didn't know how to prepare me because they weren't prepared. But it was like starting life all over.
So when you came here, what grade did you had to start from?
When I came here, I started in fourth grade.
Fourth grade. How was that?
Fourth grade was pretty. Fourth grade wasn't really fun, I guess. I was just trying to find myself and find where I fit in the social hierarchy, I guess, of school. And just trying to make new friends, trying to understand how the classes work, trying to understand how English worked because where I'm from, we spoke British English, so we spelled a lot of things differently. So it was just a culture shock.
Yeah, man, I understand that. Coming to a new country is definitely a culture shock. You are experiencing slash seeing things that you've, probably never seen before. Okay, so coming here, you had to get into the fourth grade. Did you have to take a test?
Yep, I had to take an English test and a math test. So it was like a placement test.
Do you feel like you were in the proper placement?
Yeah, well, for my age, I think they put me up one grade ahead. So I think I should have been in third grade. But the funny thing is, they put me up one grade ahead, and then they put me in ESOL, even though, coming from the English side of Cameroon, my English skills were way better than the American English skills. So I kind of feel like they stereotyped me maybe because I had an accent, and they just threw me in ESOL.
So what is ESOL?
It's basically for international students that are coming to the United States, and they don't really speak English that well, so they put them in one class, not one class, but well, when I was in school, it was like a program that at a certain time of the day you would go over there, especially for an English class. So they put everyone in one room, and they would kind of go over everything. But I think it's different for each grade. But just in the fourth grade, we would go there during a certain time of day with other kids from other foreign countries.
Do you feel like the school did that to make you more comfortable in a new environment?
Um, I don't know. I mean, maybe because I don't think there was a reason for me to be in there, or maybe it was just I'm leaning towards more them being lazy and them assuming things about me, so they just threw me in there. I guess when they heard that, oh, he just came from a foreign country, and they just assumed that you probably don't speak English well, so they just threw me in there. But it might have been to make me more comfortable, but then again, after that, they didn't really make any effort to make me more comfortable. So I'm leaning towards them just throwing me in there.
Okay. What kind of students were you interacting with? Where were they from?
Mostly I was interacting with Hispanic students. So I don't think there was any other Africans in ESOL at that time. So mostly I was interacting with Hispanic students from Mexico, El Salvador, all those Latin American countries.
Okay. So you stated that your parents worked a lot when they first came here. I guess since they are also starting from, the beginning, what kind of jobs were they doing? Did you know?
Well, my dad, I think my dad was like a nurse at Howard, and my mom was like a CNA.
Okay.
So those are the jobs that they did when we first came here. But the thing is, my dad was already here before we got here, so he was already working for like a couple of years, and he you guys got used to it a little bit. My mom came later with us.
So have you been in the DC area your whole life?
Yeah, I've basically my whole life. I haven't really moved anywhere.
Okay. So I would like to speak on the different aspects of DC culture or the DMV culture because compared to now, things were very different back then, right?
Definitely, things were very, very different back then. And when you said that, that kind of struck a nerve with me because I see the way things are, and on some level, I'm unwilling to accept it because I feel like, you know, I feel like DC's approach. No, I wouldn't say DC, but I feel like in DC, the African Americans' approach to African immigrants was terrible back then,
What do you mean by
and
terrible?
now they just they treated you worse than anyone, but they were supposed to be the closest to you. So they would make African jokes, they would make fun of you, they would make fun of your accent, even though both of you were black and you were supposed to connect with them more than connecting with others. you know, I always ended up connecting with the Hispanics more because I guess we shared more in common because we were from foreign countries. Then after was the white people, just because I guess they were more open and to learning than it was the African Americans. But even still till this day, I currently don't even have many African American friends. I've probably only had like one or two. But concerning how stuff used to be back then versus now, I feel like everyone is embracing the African culture, but it's those same people who denied the African culture a couple of, well, maybe 10, 15 years ago. And it's the same people who ridiculed the African culture. Now they want to accept it and they want to claim that they're African themselves. And I really have a problem with that.
Do you feel like, their actions came from pure ignorance due to them being kids at that point in life?
Um, yeah, I think so. I think it came from ignorance. But again, I would have to say that there were also kids from other cultures, also the white kids, or the Hispanic kids. Maybe the Hispanic kids have been born here, been here for a while, and there's like Asian kids. Everyone else seemed to be more accepting, except for them. So I don't know if it was ignorance or something else, but
Okay.
really, they just seem to really dislike Africans.
Okay. I understand that. You stated that your dad was already here and you came here with your mom. Were there any security aspects that, your parents worried about, especially for a child?
Yep, definitely. And they were worried about gun violence. They were worried about gang violence. They really, they were a bit over protective and a little bit more worried than they should be because I guess they watch the news more and, based on their experiences out in the world, they felt like America was a very dangerous place when in reality that was very far from the case.
But
And I guess their experiences with and they also had this dislike for African Americans, and I guess that was also based on their experience with watching the news and also interacting with some of them on the bus.
mhm.
But yeah, they felt that it was more dangerous than it actually was.
Yeah, I get that. Security would be a present issue for anyone that started life over in a new country. Like the environment you decide to reside in plays a key role, such as living in the heart of a city versus a suburb. Let's fast forward to middle school and high school. Did things get better as far as what you went through with discrimination?
Yeah, things got a lot better in middle school. You just kind of found your place. I found my social group. I mean, admittedly, it was among the Hispanics, but I found my social group and things got really better. Made some new friends, and I said things. And in high school, there were more Africans. So in high school, I started hanging out with the Africans more, and I found more of my own people. But throughout that whole time, I just always hung out with immigrants.
Apart from having the connection as immigrants, what other connections did you have? These different groups.
We played the same sport. We had the same shared experiences. We kind of thought the same, you know. I mean, you did say it as an immigrant, but we just kind of thought the same. We looked at life the same way, you know. We're all here to make our parents proud. We had the same work ethic.
So do you feel as if immigrants have a higher work ethic than individuals that were born in the country?
I do feel that immigrants have a higher work ethic because, we come from less. We know we've seen. Not all of us might have suffered in our country, but we've seen a level of poverty that makes us want to work harder than people already in the U.S. I feel like people in the U.S. take a lot of things for granted. That when you're coming from another country, you've seen people in really desperate situations. You've seen messed up things happen. So when you come here, you are willing to work harder because you know how messed up life can be. And also, I feel like more is expected from us from our parents. So we just tend to have a higher work ethic.
What kind of things do you believe they took for granted?
I believe they took the education for granted. And again, this goes back to the point of not, where we talked about ignorance and, thinking Americans might be ignorant. But me being in the same school system as them, I do feel that the information was put out there for them to learn. But they just didn't absorb it because they felt it was unimportant. Like in our history classes, they talked about their cultures, although it wasn't very much detail, but they did speak about it. I feel that the biggest thing that they take for granted is the education.
Education. Okay. And you also mentioned immigrants wanting to work hard and make your parents proud. Do you feel like that comes with a lot of stress?
That definitely comes up with a lot of stress. I know as a child that affected me all the way through graduating from high school, and even when I was going to college. I just always felt that, I felt a little bit guilty because my parents made all these sacrifices for me. They worked 7 days a week. They left their country. They left a really good life back home. And, I come here and I kind of felt like I owed it to them to, do what they expected of me. I owed it to them to get the career that they wanted me to get or to, do the things that they wanted me to do.
What kind of career did they want you to get?
They wanted me to be a doctor or and they said, well, if you don't want to be a doctor, you could settle for a nurse practitioner. So, and then after that, they're like, well, you could also be an engineer. So they wanted me to get all the, the ideal careers. And I was in nursing school for a little bit, and I was going to college for nursing, and I was extremely unhappy and depressed, but I kept doing it because I felt that, hey, this is what they want me to do, and I owe it to them to get it done.
So it wasn't necessarily something you loved.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't something I loved. I don't think I was built to become a nurse. I don't really like seeing people in bad situations. So it definitely wasn't something I loved. I just did it because I felt guilty.
Okay, so it came from guilt. Do you believe that they had a one-track mind?
I wouldn't say that they had a one-track mind. I'll say that, um, how can I say this? I'll say that when you're in a third world country, you know, you don't really have the luxury of becoming whatever you want. You just become what is required of you to elevate your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they carried that same attitude into America, which was good, I guess, in a way, it makes, the children higher achievers. But, it's granted, if I was back home, I wouldn't have this luxury of trying to chase what makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, I'm not back home.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have the luxury. And, they think of things as, hey, this is how it should be done, regardless of your happiness. They think about they don't really think about things in terms of happiness and feeling fulfilled in your life. They think of things in terms of paying bills, taking care of your family, and making sure everyone is okay. And, so I don't really fault them for it. At the end of the day, they were trying to do what's best or what was best for me.
To me, it sounds as if they might have had a hard time letting you know what life in America would be as an adult. So they were just looking for a niche that provided you with the greatest amount of income.
Yeah, I think so. And I've always had this, well, it's not a theory, but I've always had this hypothesis, how you say, of what drives us to achieve, maybe higher education. And I think it's just because, we think differently. We don't think in terms of the individual. We think in terms of, we don't think in terms of what we want to do. We just think in terms of, what would provide us with the basic necessities and a comfortable life, mm-hmm. in a sense. So we don't think, what would make me happy? What would fulfill my life? Mm-hmm. We just think, hey, what would put food on the table, and what would, give me the chance of having the basic necessities provided for me. And I guess that just comes from, coming from a poor place, because I think when we sit and we look at our lives, I think chasing your dream is a luxury that a lot of people don't have in other countries. You can't chase your dream if you're hungry, You can't chase your dream if, you're worried about war or you're worried about, disease and all those things. So, but here we just think, chasing your dreams is what you're supposed to do. But my parents, they came with that mindset. Hey, you can't chase your dreams if you don't have the basic necessities provided for you. But, I guess they are forgetting that we are in a place with more resources and, where life is a little bit more stable. Maybe we as children, even though we do have a little bit of the, drive to get things done because we've seen people struggle, we also do have the benefit of being in America and wanting and having that luxury that maybe they didn't have of chasing our dreams, because I can't really sit here and say, our parents didn't want to be something else besides what they are today. Maybe they wanted to be, my mom, she used to run track, and she wanted to be in the Olympics and all that, but that wasn't really realistic for her family. That's a dream, that's a luxury. So she had to do what she had to do.
You brought up an important aspect I would like to shed some light on. Another reason I'm thinking this could would be mostly due to the fact that immigrants that do move to a different country, they end up having family in their country of birth that, or have family members in their country of birth that constantly ask them for money. So when they are in a new country, they don't feel like they could just follow a dream. They have to always make sure they have enough money to either send back to their home or, provide anything that anyone would want from back home.
Yep, that's most definitely an aspect, and I feel like they have this facade to keep up, because people back home genuinely think, that America is filled with money and it's filled with gold on the streets, that, it's easy to just, find like maybe $500 to $1,000 and send back. And our parents, or sometimes us ourselves, being the ones that made it to America, sometimes coming to America is a whole family effort. Maybe the whole family puts up money that they've been saving. Maybe your aunt, your uncle, your grandfather, put up money that they have been saving, and maybe they want a return on that investment, and they think, oh, you're in the land of milk and honey, so what is $500 to you? What is $1,000 to you? But they don't know that with all this capitalism comes a lot of hard work.
You also mentioned that your family members back home might have put money in a pot for you to be able to come to the United States. Coming from, Africa and not having a lot of money, is that usually the aspect, or is there another way for somebody to come to the United States?
Well, I use that as an example.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
Yeah, and I really wouldn't know, what had to happen for me to get here, because as far as I remember, things were pretty good. I mean, granted, I was a certain age, I was very young, but as far as I remember, things were pretty good, and we had a really good life. We didn't really want for anything.
Okay, let's talk about your dream. Since you did not really like nursing, what was your dream?
That's very complicated because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have, some people have a calling. They're like, hey, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be I want to do music. I want to be a doctor or something. I never really had anything that that really called my name. Like, hey, you're called to do this. I was very talented in school, but I just didn't have a drive to pursue a certain career. I knew that. And I guess I'm still finding myself in that regard. I knew that I didn't want to be a nurse, but then again, I didn't really know the specific field that I wanted to get into, And I guess in a way, I'm still finding out what I would like to really do, and
But what you do want to really do has to make a lot of money.
Well, yep. So what I like to do has to make a lot of money. I wouldn't say I want to become an artist or or something that doesn't make a lot of money. I'm willing to do, basically, I'm willing to. What I would like to do has to make a lot of money because I want a certain lifestyle for myself. But I'm also not willing to be unhappy just to make a lot of money, if that makes sense.
Yep, definitely. Okay, so what do you do now?
I do multiple things. I do marketing. I own e-commerce stores, and I also do fashion photography.
Oh, wow.
Basically, I'm in the retail space, and I'm also kind of trying to teach marketing to people, and basically, I would just say I do marketing
Okay.
to keep it short.
Okay. So what's it focused on? Your marketing.
Focuses on fashion and women's clothing. you know. And I guess that kind of sounds funny. Growing up, I never thought I would do anything in women's clothing or fashion. I wasn't really the most fashionable person. Even till now, I don't really care about what I wear. I just wear anything. And sometimes when I go to the events, I am the one who always stands out because I don't look like I belong there. I just have maybe a pair of soccer pants and maybe an Adidas T-shirt, but it has a focus on women's fashion.
How did you get into this field?
Well, that's a very funny story. So I actually started off by when I was in college. I used to flip phones on Craigslist
What do you mean by
and
flip
offer up.
phones?
So I would buy phones for a low price, and maybe they had a cracked screen, or maybe they had something wrong with them, and I would get them fixed, and I would resell them, or I would just look for really good bargains or people that didn't know how much their phones were worth, and I'd buy their phones off of them and resell them.
Okay, and you did this on Craigslist and what else?
And Craigslist and OfferUp, and
What?
I sometimes sold on eBay.
Okay.
So from that, I realized that it wasn't really something I could do long term or something I could scale. So I started to look into, and it was a little bit dangerous meeting strangers to buy phones from, because you could easily get robbed, or worse, you could get killed. And
Sure.
I didn't want any parts of that. So I started looking into ways that I could find, something with a higher market cap, and or something that I could do long term. So I started, and I was already selling stuff online, like on eBay and stuff. So I started looking for ways I could sell items online. Started off with phone cases. That really didn't work. And then I stumbled upon selling women's hair accessories, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is this is better. This is easy. Not
So-
easy, but."
Question about that.
Yep, go ahead.
What was the change in the amount of money you were making from selling phones to selling women's accessories?
It was a big difference, actually. So before I used to sell phones, so I wouldn't have to work at my day job. I used to work at Pizza Hut, so I would sell phones, so I wouldn't have to work at my day job every day, because I really dislike working at Pizza Hut, and it didn't really pay much for the amount of stress that it caused. So I decided to sell phones so I could go to school, full time, and still have enough money to pay for school and everything. Because at that point, I kind of felt guilty that I wasn't really doing what my parents wanted me to do. So I decided to start paying for my own school instead of them paying for it. Because I figured, if I'm not going to do what they want me to do, I have to start paying for it. So at that point, I started selling phones in order to kind of reduce the hours that I worked. And I was making really good money, but not career money. So not really change your life money, but enough money to only work 2 to 1 days a week at Pizza Hut.
So you would say selling phones gave you more money than the hourly wage you would get from Pizza Hut?
Definitely. I would probably make my paycheck if I was working full time at Pizza Hut, I would probably make my paycheck in about 2 to 3 days of, if I was lucky, or other times I would make my paycheck in about a week.
Okay.
So that's with doing a few deals to doing a few deals and just driving back and forth, driving to pick up the phone, listing the phone on Craigslist or OfferUp, driving to meet up the guy for the phone, or working 5 to 7 days a week, 8 hours at a time,
Okay.
and not really making anything. So it was a big difference, which is why I kept doing it for a while.
Okay. So when you started selling women's hair accessories, would you say you made enough money to not work at all?
So when I first started selling, no, I lost money for the first 6 months. But the thing about that is when you would, and I am thankful that I did cell phones, because when you would sell phones, you would make money so fast that you losing money on the business was pretty easy to deal with. You would just say, "Oh, I just need to sell 2 or 3 iPhones to make that money that I lost back," and the money that you lost would be about probably $800 to $1,000. But money came so quickly that you didn't really see money the same way. Money was a lot more disposable to you. And I'm glad that I did have the intelligence, or, the hindsight to take that money, and instead of buying cars or clothes with it, I decided to invest it in a business. But for the first 6 months, I didn't make much. I didn't make anything. I lost a lot of money. Then I actually met a YouTuber online who I communicated with, and they decided to advertise my products or to do like a hair review on their on their YouTube channel. And after that, my store kind of blew up, and I was finally making. I have to admit, I wasn't making as much as I was making selling phones, but I was making enough to not sell phones.
Okay.
So, yep. So, and for me, it was kind of a little bit of I'd say like it was a good trade-off, because I had a bad experience where I went to buy a phone, and I did get robbed. So after that point, selling phones felt kind of weird to me. It felt like a little bit dangerous. So I was willing to take that pay cut, as I was at home safe, and I wasn't really doing as much work. So,
okay. So can you elaborate on that? How did it happen? How did you get robbed?
well, I could definitely elaborate. So I went to buy a phone. I did a deal with this guy before, but the people I bought phones from weren't exactly the most. It got to a point that to make the kind of money I was making, you had to buy phones from people who got those phones by illegal means. So,
Okay.
yep. So, I wasn't the one. I always felt, hey, I wasn't the one, doing the credit card scamming or whatever they did to get the phones. So it wasn't on me. If I paid my money for the phone is mine. I really didn't care how they acquired the phone. But doing those kinds of deals with people like that kind of got dangerous. And, I guess I was a little bit more trusting, because I'd been doing it for a while and nothing had happened yet. So I went to meet the guy for the phone, and he just robbed me at gunpoint.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, that was a very eye-opening experience. The weird part is he was so calm and so polite about it, which is very funny. He just told me, "Hey, I'm robbing you. So, if you give me what you have, there'll be no issues." And I was like, "Well, all right."
So it was at that point that you knew this life is not for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't want to take that risk anymore. The money was good, but at the same time, you think, hey, and maybe the gun might have been fake, or maybe, something else might have happened. But at the same time, you think, this isn't really worth it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's good money, but there's other ways to make money.
Right.
So that was at that point where I started making my exit strategy. So I was like, yeah, as I'm selling these phones, I need to figure out something to do because at some point you can't just be meeting out random people who do illegal things
Mm-hmm.
to buy phones from to resell. Like that's not a business. That's not a legitimate business. You know, sure you're getting money, but you know,
It,
at
it
what cost?
it's not sustainable for a long run.
Yes, definitely not sustainable for a long run. And you know, you never know if they would. And you know, at some point, I guess my bills weren't really I really didn't have a lot of bills, so I had a lot of disposable income. But I was thinking, man, if I had a house and you know, and I had like a lot more bills to pay
Mm-hmm.
besides my school,
Mm-hmm.
this really wouldn't be sustainable because you never know when they would have. You know, sometimes they wouldn't have for about a week or two, and you would have to wait. And sometimes they would have every like 3 days.
Mm,
So,
okay.
and then you know the people are really unreliable. So,
So the whole thing
you
was
know,
unpredictable.
it was very unpredictable.
Okay. So this is when you got into the hair business. So where were you getting this hair?
It was hair accessories actually,
Oh, hair
and
accessories.
so
Okay.
yep. So I started off by trying to sell phone cases. That I actually got in contact with a supplier in China,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that didn't you know they I I spent about $300 to get samples made, and they shipped those samples to me, and the samples came out looking like garbage.
Mm.
And I was already ready to launch my website, and I was like, "Damn, what can I put on my website?" You know, so I could launch my website while I figure out this phone case thing. And so, you know, others they had other suppliers that were selling other things. And I was like, you know what? I don't really have a choice, or you know, or whatever works works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So I
Mm-hmm.
just decided to throw up some hair accessories on my website, and from that point on, it worked. I had no idea it would work. It was just random. You know, a lot of you know entrepreneurs or people that have businesses, they like to give an elaborate story about how they or make themselves seem more intelligent about how they came up on what they came up on. But I just got lucky. I put a random thing on my website and I made I started running Facebook ads or something, and I made one sale, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is possible." So after that, I started throwing money at it,
Okay.
and yeah. So basically, my start was pure luck. It just happened that I randomly threw something on my website to have in the meantime, and it ended up selling.
That's nice.
And
So you actually took advantage of the technology that we have today.
yeah, definitely, I took advantage of the fact that I mean, granted, you do have to have a little bit of experience, but anyone can, get on the internet and make your own website, or
Mm-hmm.
anyone can talk to someone in China and establish a supply chain
Mm-hmm.
just from their bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
Or, anyone can create an Instagram page and basically sell anything. You
Okay.
don't have to have a lot of startup costs. You don't have to own a building to have a store in it. You could just get up and do whatever you want. Not do whatever you want, but like open whatever business you'd like.
Okay. So it's just having that drive to do it.
Yep, it's having the drive to not only do it, but it's having the drive to fail.
Mm.
So you have to be willing to fail. And the thing about it is, a lot of people think having a business is hard, or starting a business is hard. But they don't count how many times the people who started the business have failed.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people will have one business idea and it doesn't work, so they give up.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I look at it is, if you have one, in my case, I I tried to sell phone cases. If you try to sell phone cases and phone cases don't work, don't get offended or don't get discouraged. Try to sell something else. And the only time you fail as a business owner is when you give up. And I feel like business owners are the ones who let their failures, change their ideas in a good way. Hey, let's say if you wanted to sell clothes and you realize clothes weren't selling and you're willing to change to something else and keep trying or keep throwing money at it. And, I know I use the term throw money at it, but a lot of times when you throw money at something, you learn. So you're basically paying for on-the-job experience, basically. Because when you throw money at it and you fail, you get to look at what worked and what didn't work. So you do have to be willing to lose a large amount of money if you want to start a business. And I guess that's what a lot of people don't think about, I guess being an entrepreneur is more glamorized now, but the truth is it's far from that. It's extremely hard mentally. You have to be willing to lose a lot. And I think that's the only way you can succeed.
Okay, very true. That's great advice, man. I'm sure a lot of people would appreciate that.
Yep. And, not to talk about the mental health aspect of being an entrepreneur, that's a whole nother thing. But I think you just have to be willing to go through all this. And I think being an entrepreneur is hard, but being patient and being willing to go through all these ups and downs is what's hard.
Yes, man, definitely. I do believe a strong mindset is required for all entrepreneurs. You are facing ups and downs on a daily, But what's an advice you would give to an immigrant?
To be honest, I really wouldn't know the first thing about coming to the United States now, because the United States now is different from the United States that I came to.
Yeah.
So it's a bit weird. I really wouldn't know what advice to give an immigrant coming to the United States, because they're coming to a more welcoming place than I came into.
Very true. Very true. I myself started noticing the difference when African music was being played on the radio, because back in the day, you would never see that at all.
Let me say something about that. I actually get really offended, and I granted it's most likely from my personal experience. That's made me a little bit salty, but I actually get offended when people or certain people who didn't accept us before are now really embracing our culture and, going on social media, defending our culture or saying, hey, you can't do this, you're not black, or hey, you can't wear braids, you're not African, or you can't do this, that's disrespectful to the African culture, and they try to claim being African. I really get offended by that, and I see it as cultural appropriation.
Oh,
that might
speak on that.
I feel like I would feel a different way if I came to America and they were more welcoming of our culture. But the truth is, they weren't, and now it just seems like a style that everyone is trying to get into. I've never had a problem with other people, let's say Jamaicans or something, claiming African culture, because they never left it. It's always been part of them. Right. They never abandoned it. Okay. So it's their culture too.
I understand what you're saying. That's very true. And I would like to thank you for being able to participate in this podcast. You are our first caller. This was a great bit of information. I'm sure a lot of people will listen to this and understand from, an immigrant's standpoint, from a specific country. And hopefully they will learn and understand that there are certain things that you have to focus on in life. It's not necessarily about the little things. And yeah, I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me on, and I do hope a lot of people learn from this, and hopefully not a lot of people get offended.
Yeah, I hope not as well. This is the whole purpose is to provide information. If someone gets offended, then they can come on and speak from their standpoint.
Yep.
All right.
I know.
Thanks a lot. I hope we do speak again. I would love for us to have another call with you down the line. So thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
All right. Bye.